tonight. But let's welcome in the Amen Corner, who's already interrupted the radio program. Jen and Rebecca, good evening. And the three of us sat here about 2 weeks ago, and two of you did. I just kind of let you guys roll with it. But the two of you basically sat here and presided over a funeral, a political funeral of one Rand Paul after his endorsement on the Sean Hannity television show of Mitt Romney. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, Crystal.
Yeah. Do you remember, Rebecca?
I seem to recall something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
remember she
listen,
went on vacation.
She was so
after it
distraught,
happened.
she had to call OSHA, which forced me to give her 2 days off because it was a workplace violation. She was so verklempt at what Rand Paul,
psychological torture,
who was Rebecca's last starfighter. The
sad.
last starfighter for Rebecca was Rand Paul, the last holdout. And when he gave into the system, that was it. You were done. In fact, you were tapping out over there on the other side of the glass a couple weeks ago when he did that. You were so worked up.
It's like the I Am Your Father scene. It was that bad.
I mean, you were... Have you recovered?
No. But
No.
if you are about to say what I think you're about to say, it'll be a step in the right direction.
Well, I'm wondering if reports of his political demise have been greatly exaggerated. Now, listen, I'm somewhat kidding with Jen and Rebecca. I kind of piled on because as much as I like Rand, I don't believe what he's suggesting will work simply because every time it's tried, it's been failed.
Which is to go along to get along and try to reform the system from within the system.
Doesn't work. You got to annihilate the system. I mean, that's the only reform in the end that works. Annihilation or the threat thereof. It's the only reform that's ever worked in the history of humankind. But that notwithstanding, and maybe he'll learn that lesson and it won't be too painful for the rest of us the day that he learns it. However, this Rand Paul, I like this Rand Paul a lot better. I'm going to share with you the characterization of this from the Huffington Post.
Oh, yay.
So you can get an example of how all the wrong people have their panties in a bunch right now, okay? Now, this is how the Huffington Post is reporting this. Senator Rand Paul moved this week to hold a non-controversial flood insurance bill hostage until the Senate agrees that life begins at fertilization or conception.
Seriously?
That's the lead to the article from the Huffington Post. The bill, which would financially boost the national flood insurance program on the cusp of hurricane season, had been expected to pass easily in the Senate. But since Paul on Monday offered an unrelated, quote, fetal personhood amendment, unquote, which would give legal protections to fetuses from the moment of fertilization, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has had a conniption fit. I'm sorry, that's not in the article. That's my own editorializing. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is threatening to halt progress on the legislation. Now, look at the way they're describing it. All right, a fetal personhood bill, right? But notice what happens when you claim the moral high ground, right? They've got to use your word. So they put their own prefix in there with fetal, but what word are we listening to the Huffington Post use? What word?
Personhood.
What are we debating now? What are we debating? Personhood.
Yeah.
That's what we're debating.
Which is basically what we've tried to push them into the corner to do.
We are debating whether this is a person or not. Is this not the debate we have wanted to have for 40 years? Is this not the debate? We're making the Huffington Post at least halfway accept our terminology here. That's a win right there. We don't usually even get that. We're making the other side have to use our talking points because we're claiming the moral high ground of our position. Therefore, they cannot co-opt us. The best they can do is throw in their own throw-in line ahead of our term. Reid says, quote, I'm told last night, as if he doesn't know, that one of our Republican senators wants to offer an amendment, listen to this one, wants to offer an amendment on when life begins. Ha 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 ha, what could be sillier than that? This is the majority leader of the U.S. Senate who is mocking the idea that we're going to debate when life begins. Because there's so many more important things.
That's a win, too, though, getting him to admit that.
Yes.
Getting him to say that in black and white.
Yes.
Forcing it out of them.
That's right. Look at the language he's using. When life begins. Not an anti-choice bill. Not an anti-reproductive freedom bill. It is when life begins. This is what happens when you grab the moral high ground of your argument. He goes, I'm not going to put up with that on flood insurance. I can be condemned by outside sources. My friends can say, let them have a vote on it. There will not be a vote on that on flood insurance. We'll either do flood insurance with the amendments that deal with flood insurance, or we won't do it. We'll have an extension. He's backing them down. Again, how many times have we seen that?
Never.
Never. And how is he backing him down? Well, Reid has been allowing people to put amendments that are not related or germane to bills all along. This entire legislative session, he's done it. The entire legislative session. Now he's going to make an exception. And why? Why?
Because it's one of their 4 pillars.
That's right. And Rand is attacking it. And he's asserting the premise of the argument. He is not surrendering the moral high ground. He is not accepting their premise.
I mean, he went for the whole enchilada
He
here.
went for the whole thing.
He didn't do a, quote, fetal pain bill or anything, a license plate bill. No, he went straight for personhood.
Yes.
On flood insurance. This is the first time hearing of this. This is fabulous. Okay, I'm going to have to rethink this. Because this is serious street cred. This is serious redemption points.
Now, this brings us back to the one part about Rand's endorsement when he defended himself that I did defend him on last week or 2 weeks ago when we talked about this. Remember when he said, hey, I still have a record. I've still done stuff.
Yes, and he has.
Okay, and in the end, I need to be judged in the full context of my record, not just who I endorse.
That's
People
true.
endorse for lots of different reasons. But in the end, there's my record.
Mostly stupid
And
ones,
and at that time, I did defend that. Now, what would you rather have if you had a choice? Endorsing the Republican nominee for president after all the other options have been exhausted, or this? Which would you rather have?
Well, we have to have this. It's
Yes.
not even a what I want.
No.
It's a we have to have. We have to have more Republican or just any statesmen who are willing to use the system against itself, push them up against the wall, and force them to out themselves as the murderous, cantankerous, intolerant left that they are.
And he has done that.
And if I may change your question a bit, I think if we have these types of things, it doesn't really matter about presidents.
That's
It doesn't
right.
matter about endorsements, because this is where laws are made. This is where principles should come to fruition.
And now Rand has a record, which means when the Republicans get control of the Senate or there's a Republican president, he will be expected to do this exact same thing. And that's when you'll find out if the rubber really meets the road. But for now, this is the kind of leadership we have been looking for.
You're listening to Steve Deace.